Welcome to the First Things First podcast. And first things first, we need you to subscribe and leave comments letting us know what you think of the show. We're listening. I'm Nick Wright, joined by two of my favorite people, Jenna Wolf, Chris Carter. Now, let's get the show started.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Monday. Welcome to a new week. Welcome to a new-looking Chris Carter. This is First Things First. This is Nick Wright. You are in for Chris Carter all week.
You didn't
is Chris
say a
Broussard,
better-looking,
better dressed. I know they don't get cable down wherever CC is, so I could say you've got a million things going for you right now.
Hold on. While I'm thrilled to have my friend Chris Broussard here, it is great to see you, brother. Let me do this, though.
Yes.
Jenna Wolf was out because we were on a little vacation. Then Jenna Wolf was sick. Jenna Wolf has been gone quite some time. We missed you tremendously.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jenna Wolf is back on her birthday.
I know.
So a very
many
happy
things.
35th birthday to one Jenna Wolf.
34, but that's okay.
It is
Nobody's
wonderful to see you,
counting.
and we are glad to have you back.
Let me just tell you both this. The flu is
no
joke.
Listen, get your flu shots, people.
It is no joke. I joke around that nobody in this staff can outrun me or no one can stronger than I am. The flu nailed me, just knocked me out. But I feel great to be back. I did get a chance to watch you guys a ton.
Thank you.
So I have a lot of notes.
You have notes.
Do you want me to go through them? Now we'll just do it. We'll do a minute commercial.
It's good to see you, Jenna.
The other thing I got to do is watch a lot of basketball, and I watched this game. The Cavs kicking off a 5-game homestand last night, hosting the Spurs. LeBron and friends were excited to resume work on their group science project called Chemistry. LeBron and friends need more work on chemistry, apparently, falling 110-94 to the Spurs. 33 points out of LeBron, but the rest of the team struggled on offense mightily. Just 23% from three-point range. So the Cavs have now lost 2 straight games with this group. Chris Broussard, did we all jump on the Cavaliers bandwagon maybe just like a tiny bit too soon?
I don't think so. Well, first of all, most people are saying they're going to win the East. So I'm in that group. I don't think that's too soon. I mean, that wasn't based on their play. That was based on what they got rid of as far as the problems, as far as the age, and what they brought in as far as the youth, the athleticism, more shooting in the backcourt, things like that. So,
and probably a little based on Boston looking wobbly after Boston looked really good to start the year.
Very wobbly. Those that went immediately to they're winning the championship, I don't know if you're in this boat. No. I think you had them winning the championship anyway.
I've picked LeBron.
Exactly. So
I picked the team LeBron's on to win the title. I think each year since they made the finals against the Pistons, or when they beat the Pistons. So I think every year since then, I think I'm 3 for 9 in that stretch. But so, yeah, I probably did. But go ahead.
I won't even put you in that group that jumped because of the trade. So I took the approach of I want to see how much they improve to the point where we feel like, okay, they really can compete against the Warriors. But all that said, the answer is no. This team is still the cream of the crop in the Eastern Conference. Getting to yesterday's games, I think there's a few things they have to work on. Ty Lue, and this was somewhat of an issue or an issue even before the trades, he's got to figure out his rotations. And he had some lineups in there that I don't think were the right lineups. Like the fourth quarter, they're outscored 34-20. They were down 2 heading into the fourth. And fourth, obviously, is what decided the game. LaMarcus Aldridge goes off. He has 8 of his 27 points in the fourth quarter. Tristan Thompson, who had defended him fairly well. I mean, Aldridge was scoring on Thompson, too. But that's your best shot at guarding him. He didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. They went with a small lineup.
And they refused to double. They went with the small lineup, and they wouldn't double Aldridge.
Even with the small lineup, you're right, they didn't double. Then DeJounte Murray, the young point guard with the Spurs, he had 3 points through the first 3 quarters. He ends up with 10 in the fourth quarter to score 13 all night. George Hill, your best defender at the point position, doesn't play at all in the fourth. So I think Ty Lue, and I'll give him a little time because you got a lot of new players, but he's got to do a better job figuring out this rotation. And to me, there's no excuse for George Hill to play not at all in the front. I don't care if he was off.
And Ty Lue's got to figure out the rotation, and it's almost working on a car that you know you're going to sell because then Kevin Love comes back, and then it's a totally new rotation. Kevin Love will play the second most minutes probably of any Cav in the playoffs behind LeBron. So anything he does right now is just temporary fixes. Do I think people jumped on the Cavs bandwagon too soon? I do not. I think what we saw the day before the trade deadline, the Wednesday night against the Timberwolves when LeBron hit the game winner, that day LeBron found out the trades were coming. I know that. He didn't know exactly what they were, but he knew what the possible trades were. And what they acquired at the trade deadline was a rejuvenated LeBron James, a re-engaged LeBron James. They got the best player in the league back. LeBron won Player of the Month in November, won it in December, is about to win it in February. January, he was not the same guy. No way. And so that's why I think people jump back on the bandwagon. And so what happened yesterday, to be honest, similar to what happened when they lost a few days before to Washington. Against Washington, what happened at the end of the game? Everyone other than LeBron went 0 for 10 from the field, didn't score a point. Yesterday, of every game LeBron James has played in his career, over 1,100 at this point, there has not been a single game where the other four starters scored fewer points than yesterday. It's the lowest points LeBron's other four starters have ever scored in any game in his career. Those starters played 64 minutes.
In the fourth quarter or just period?
The game. For the game. Okay. Those starters played 64 minutes. 6 for 28 from the field. 14 points, 1 assist. So, that's why they lost. Listen, you can look at the box score. You can go down the line. Okay, what did George Hill do? 1 for 7. JR, 1 for 8. Seti, Jetty Osman, 1 for 6. Tristan Thompson, 3 for 7. So, that's the story of the basketball game, what those other guys did. I think that's more of an outlier than a trend.
Here's my point. Why? Why did they score so low? I think the Cavaliers have become too three-point centric. They shoot more threes than Golden State, which is ridiculous. They don't shoot it nearly as well as Golden State. They're 12th in the league in three-point percentage. They're 3rd in the league in three-point attempts.
Right.
They should not have to live and die by the three. You got LeBron, obviously, who was great at driving to the bucket yesterday. Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson. These are scorers. These are not just spot-up three-point shooters. In fact, they're not spot-up three-point shooters. So you don't have to rely on just a three-point shot. Their half-court offense yesterday was atrocious. They're lucky they got out in the break, and they had great transition offense, and LeBron was driving to the bucket, getting a lot of layups. That's what had them in the game. But they were 8 for 34 from three. When they lost to Washington, 8 for 35 from three. Yeah. They don't need these games where they're taking that many threes. The reason the half-court offense was so bad, in my view, is because it was all set up to get three-pointers. If LeBron didn't drive and score a layup, they were looking to get somebody a three. There were times in the first quarter where Tony Parker was on LeBron, and they didn't post him.
Right.
And that's part on LeBron. He was at the elbow, not looking to post. But they don't have to be so three-point heavy.
Do you think there's something to the fact that the more LeBron drives, the more frustrating he's getting for not getting calls, and he's settling for these outside shots? Maybe the other guys are watching him, and after the game, some of them were talking about how frustrated it is he's not getting the calls, so they rely a little too much on that shot from outside?
I think right now some of it is because there's so many new bodies. The simplest offense for guys to learn is, listen, clear out, spot up on the three-point line. LeBron's going to drive and be ready to shoot.
But they were doing this before these new guys.
Oh, absolutely.
They were shooting.
Hey, listen, they have transitioned to one of last year in the finals, the two most three-heavy teams in the league outside of Houston were Golden State and Cleveland. This is who they are. And in that game against Washington, when I mentioned that the guys other than LeBron down the stretch were 0 for 10, that was all three-pointers. Down the stretch, the only person against Washington that lost a few days ago to shoot a two-pointer was LeBron. Yesterday, you mentioned the guys as a whole. They were 8 for 34 from three. But the thing is this. That is the type of that they've acquired and who's on the court.
Not now.
But hold on, Rodney.
Name one player on their team who's a knockdown three-point shooter. I think they have one.
Just Kyle Korver? He's the only one.
He's only knocked down. The other guys are streaky. LeBron will get hot and look great from three. Rodney Hood is a good three-point.
Rodney Hood's been at 38% for his career.
He's a good three-point shooter. He's not a knockdown three-point shooter.
Well, I think
Jordan Clarkson can get hot, but he's not knocked down.
I wouldn't call a knockdown shooter either, but George Hill was, when the Cavs acquired him, the league's leading
because he wasn't
shooter.
shooting a lot either. The more he's going to play and shoot,
he was only shooting wide open shots. But I don't necessarily have a huge problem with the Cavs' offensive approach because I think it's been effective.
Is it going to be Golden State? You're not going to outshoot Golden State.
Listen, they're not going to beat Golden State in a game when the starters go 6 for 28.
Because that's the nature of jump shooting, where you're not a tremendous jump shooter. You're going to have off nights. Golden State typically is not, because they have better shooters.
But if we remove the three-pointers, the starters then went 6 for 18. Like, this was to beat Golden State, if that's the standard, and I understand why it could be.
I'm not saying don't take any three. Take a lot, but to me, they're too heavy on it.
Go ahead.
Have some cutting. You know what I'm saying? When LeBron drives, have Hood or somebody cutting to the basket and hit him for a driving layup.
All right, if we get back to the question, do we jump on the bandwagon too soon? I think what you said is correct. The bandwagon is maybe not all the other players. Maybe the bandwagon is this guy getting rejuvenated, getting his energy back, getting his desire to want to play back. And, yeah, he is. 33 points last night. And you could tell he started when everyone else wasn't shooting well, he kind of willed it. He was like, I'm going to take it upon myself, and he did it over and over and over again.
It wasn't enough because they weren't hitting their shots, and this might be a fundamental disagreement we have. I think the only way they can beat Golden State or Houston is by hitting a bunch of threes.
They're not, though. They're not that good of shooters.
Oh, well, I mean, the thing is,
they can get streaky. JR is streaky as all get out.
They're going to have to be streaky for a couple games in that series to have a shot at it. Right. I don't think they can beat them straight up. I don't think they can beat them when Golden State or Houston are going for threes. I don't think the Cavs have enough possessions to beat them going for two.
Again, I'm not saying don't shoot the three. You can take 30, but they're way above. They're above 30. They take 3 more than the Spurs.
My new favorite expression, now that I've been home for 2 weeks with a 2- and a 4-year-old, I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree. Coming up, and I've said it a million times with them, it's happy to be here now. Coming up, does the NBA have a Zaza problem?
Yes.
That's next on First Things First. Moving on to the Thunder versus the Warriors. This one was extremely competitive early on, like when it was 0-0. The Warriors won 112-80 Saturday night. You've missed my jokes, Nick. You didn't even hear that one.
I'm so
just
angry,
to
Jenna.
recap,
He's just upset.
The Thunder scored 80 points. Only 80. But tensions rose when Zaza Pachulia fell on Russell Westbrook during the third quarter. Westbrook not happy about this after the game, and by not happy, well, listen to this.
What you mean what happened? What do you think what happened?
Sure. I don't know. I couldn't see.
Don't lie. Don't lie. You couldn't see it. You saw the instant replay 4 times. What happened?
You fell on your leg.
Thank you. Don't ask me a dumb question you know the answer to.
You think it was intentional?
Did you see it? What it look like? What it look like? Did anybody touch him? Yes or no?
I didn't see the replay yet.
Oh, you didn't see it? But why you asking about something you didn't see?
I just saw the play live.
Well, then if you didn't see it, don't ask me a question. Don't ask me dumb questions. Obviously, it was intentional. So don't ask me, was it intentional? Nobody touched me, fell over my leg, tried to hurt me, you know. But hey, that's how I go.
Do you think that's something the NBA needs to look into?
Hey, man, they'll see it and look at it. You know what I'm saying? They'll see it.
All right, all the things we learned from that interview. Number 1, make sure you watch the game if you interview Russell Westbrook after the game. Number 2, know what you're talking about. Number 3, Nick, does the NBA have a Zaza problem?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
And listen, Golden State Hive, don't send me the Zapruder film of Nick Young's knee hitting Pachulia's leg. This guy theoretically is a professional athlete. He falls a lot. That's how Durant almost blew out his knee last year. Pachulia's histrionic falling. He didn't need to fall that way if he needed to fall at all. He didn't need to aim his hand for Russell's crotch while falling right on Russell's legs. This guy has no place in the best league in the world.
So you don't even think he should be in the league?
I wish we have blackballed players for less. Why does the NBA need Zaza Pachulia? Why do the Warriors, the most talented team ever, a team with 4 Hall of Famers, 2 MVPs, the 2 best shooters of all time, Steve Kerr's their coach, why do they need this guy? What good is it?
I'll tell you what, look, I agree with you. First of all, he didn't even fall. He purposely fell. I'm saying he didn't have to fall. He didn't trip. He went at Westbrook. I heard Kevin Durant after the game say, oh, I looked at the replay, Nick Young's leg. No.
Nonsense.
He purposely went at Westbrook. It was a terrible play, terribly dirty. I think he should be suspended for a game.
Sure.
Send a message, and the league should tell the Warriors, look, we're watching him. We got a tape. I mean, you got tapes of him hitting guys, kicking guys. Westbrook last year, he pushed Westbrook down, looks at him like he's a boxer, ending Kawhi's. But where I differ with you is that he shouldn't be in the league.
Well,
I don't know if that's hyperbole. You're joking.
It's none of the above. I don't think the NBA should kick him out for this, obviously. I'm simply saying I don't know why a team would want him. He gives them an intimidate. He's not a tough guy. He's not scaring guys. But the fact that you don't know what he'll do, that's
have
absurd.
to think about that.
That I hate.
Look, he's the type of guy you love to have. You hate to play against.
You don't love. Here's why you don't love to have him. A, I mentioned it already. He injured Durant last year with this nonsense. And B, he is going to get one of his teammates hurt in retaliation. Because if Zaza does this, guess what? They're not going after Zaza. They might go after Steph. They might go after KD. I just don't. He ended Kawhi's season, and Kawhi, by the way, hadn't been the same since. Now, I know that was an ankle injury, and there's a quad injury, but I've talked to enough doctors about the kinetic chain that when you deal with an injury to one part of your lower extremity, sometimes the rest of your body overcompensates. We don't know what that was. We saw him throw one of the dirtiest elbows in league history at now teammate David West when they were both on different teams years ago. He is to paraphrase Dave Chappelle, a habitual line stepper. And I'm done with it.
But here's the thing. You've had guys like this, iconic guys. Bill Laimbeer was worse than that. That whole Detroit Bad Boys team, Rick Mahorn, they did. John Stockton asked players around the league. He was viewed as one of the dirtiest, if not the dirtiest player in the league. I'm not saying I like what he does. I'm just saying we don't kick him out of the league.
Here's the difference between what you're describing and Zaza. First, you mentioned 3 guys on the Pistons. They were called the Bad Boy Pistons. They were considered a dirty team, and the league was different. Then you mentioned John Stockton. Absolutely no question. One of the dirtiest screen setters ever. That guy was also awesome at basketball. He was one of the 30 greatest.
So because he's not a star, he shouldn't be in the league? That's why he's in the league.
Exactly my point. If your only reason for having a roster spot is your team gets a mental edge because other players are afraid you might intentionally injure them, why be out there? Why do we have guys in the NFL? It's like, listen, the guy's not fast enough to get to the quarterback. He's a bad player.
No, they do in hockey. But they're enforcers. They do it in hockey.
Yeah, but this ain't hockey.
Exactly, but you just said, do they do it in football? They don't do it in football. They do it in hockey. Does a guy like this come out there and all of a sudden, like you said, does it even give you a 5% mental edge to have a guy like Zaza?
If he was worthless otherwise, he wouldn't be starting on one of the best teams we've ever seen.
He starts to take the tip. He then plays 12 minutes, gets 2 fouls, 2 cheap shots, and he's done. Should the Warriors need him? They have JaVale McGee.
Why do they have him?
Maybe because they got a bunch of soft guys and they need this guy there.
Well, Draymond's not soft.
No, Draymond's not soft.
KD actually is looking a lot tougher than I ever thought he was.
I shouldn't have said they had a bunch of soft guys. That's probably unfair. They shouldn't need him. Golden State, you're the most talented team.
Would they be okay without him? Probably. I mean, you're not playing JaVale McGee 30 minutes a night, that's for sure. But, look, they know what they're doing. And it's not just for the middle age. That's part of it. But it's not just for that. I think the guy gives them something. I'm just like, suspend him, let the Warriors know we're watching you, and if you do stuff like this again, it's going to get worse and worse. But you can't just kick him out of the league.
But he's done stuff like this. So is the league doing enough to get rid of guys like this? Because there are.
I just want to be clear. It's not guys like this. It's this guy. He's the single dirtiest player in the league. He went after Kawhi and it worked. He tried. What if he broke Russell's ankle?
No, I'm
with 260 pounds.
It's a terrible
falling
play.
on him like
That's why there should be some type of suspension.
And will there be, or are we past the point where the league would look at this now?
I think they may look at it, and because now there's such a hubbub about it, I think they may suspend him.
There has to be a line, man. And the line right now is Zaza Pachulia. He plays on the most high-profile team. He has nothing in common skill-wise, basketball-wise, of anyone else out there. Well, all he's out there is to set dirty screens and to do things like this.
He's a basketball player. He's an NBA caliber basketball player.
He is a replacement-level guy that if he went down for the year today, you would not.
How's he starting on the best team in the league?
Because they don't have the money for a real center. Chris, if he was injured, 1 second, Jen, if he was injured for the year today, would that change your opinion on the Warriors being able to win the title?
No, but that doesn't mean he's worthless.
All right.
I can say that about half their roster.
All right. But half their roster is not doing this. It's not doing this. It's bad for the league, man.
Say it with me.
It's bad for the league.
Hey, moving on, the Warriors are a half a game back of Houston in the West, but they act like they're a half a dozen games up on them. On Saturday, they blew out OKC 112-80. They did it with the usual ease, moxie, some whining, a little showboating, and obviously, well, with more points. Ask any fan their thoughts on this team, and the answer tends to be that they're either super exciting or super annoying. So thus became an entire segment. Chris Broussard, do you find them more exciting or annoying, this team?
I find them more exciting. This is one of the most exciting teams in the history of basketball, okay? You got the best backcourt in the league, in league history. That's right, I'm saying that. Unless Harden and Paul stay together for another 5-6 years and play like this, I think that's the best backcourt in history, obviously the best shooting backcourt. What they did against OKC in that third quarter when they just blew the game open, they can do that at any moment. They are never out of a game. You remember last year during the finals, we were watching the Cavs have a record-breaking three-point night, and we still didn't feel like it was over. This team can always come and win a game from behind. So, but I don't mind Steph doing the shimmy. I like the shimmy. I don't even mind Nick Young doing the shimmy. But there are two things that bother me about the team. One is Zaza, we talked about earlier. I don't like his dirty antics, although I wouldn't kick him out of the league. And Kevin Durant seems to be, he's a different personality than he was. Yes. And if that's who you are, fine. Like Draymond does it, that's who Draymond is. It doesn't appear to be who Durant is because we never saw it in OKC. So that I don't like. If that's really who he is and he was just suppressing that in OKC, then great. But I don't like that if that's not who you are.
I want to steal a line from one of the best sports gamblers ever, a good follow on Twitter, a guy at Twitter at Haralabob, Haralabos Vulgaris. He put it perfectly. He said, there is no team in the league more thrilling to watch between the whistles than Golden State, and no team more frustrating and annoying after the whistles than Golden State. Golden State plays a super fun style of basketball. It's fast-paced, second fastest pace in the league. It's high-scoring. There is a level of artistry to it. The fact that it is the opposite of isolation ball. So many passing. They assist on 70% of their makes. Like they are truly. It's balletic. Is that a word? Like
sure,
it's like a ballet. Watching them play.
But then the
moment the whistle blows and Iguodala is doing his best Tim Duncan impression of, I haven't fouled a guy in 6 years. What are you talking about? Draymond in this game on Saturday night smacks Carmelo Anthony on the head, rakes him in the eyes, and is like, ooh, where's the foul? Hey, I thought I was allowed to. I mean, he hits him dead in the head and then whines. Look at that. Whines about the call when he already, that's not a foul. Yes, that is a foul. There's a reason they lead the NBA in technicals. There's a reason they have 2x the ejections of any other team in the league. They have 9 ejections as a team. No other team has more than 4. Durant's got 4 by himself. Draymond's got 3. They have earned, and that doesn't even get into Zaza's goon, dirty nonsense. And the thing that I don't understand is this. You look at the technical leaders. So number 2 is Phoenix with 38, right? They're a terrible team. Number 4 is the Grizzlies. They're a terrible team. Sandwiched in between them, Thunder. Russ gets too many technicals. Melo's had some. What are the Warriors mad about? Everything is broken perfectly for you. You have the best injury luck for you and against you of any team in recent NBA history. You've won 2 of 3 championships. You added Kevin Durant after winning 73 games. Why y'all so mad?
I think what they've done is taken the villain role. Because most people, once Durant went there, and there was a little of it before, Steph throwing the mouthpiece, people were kind of getting tired of that. But when Durant went there, then a lot of people began to hate them, to not like it. It's not fair. It's an embarrassment of riches. And I think they have embraced that. And that's where and look, I'm fine with it because the bad boys in Detroit were like this. But guess what? Their game wasn't as pretty. And these guys have that same attitude, but their game is pretty and effective. They are worse than other teams in terms of complaining, but Everybody complains.
But they are
Nobody in the NBA ever commits a foul. I mean, so they're not alone in doing that.
If you take the complaining out, I've watched more Warriors basketball since we started this show than I've ever watched in my entire life. The first 3 minutes of the game, to me, the cockiness is the worst. The strolling out with Steph with the mouthpiece.
So you don't like the cockiness?
I don't like the cockiness. I don't like the fact that they know they're the best. They are. They're a great team. They might not be the best right now. That bothers me. This is my opinion. The cockiness bothers me so much. The post-game interviews with some of them are doing it with the mouthpiece hanging out. Yeah, we'll be fine.
I don't want.
Match that with Kevin Durant's year. He knows I have an issue with the Odell Beckham antics. I'm not a big antic kind of person. I don't like all the fake Twitter stuff. I don't like the shoe writing on the soles. Play your game. Be an amazing athlete. And you want to be flashy while you play. But but you're right. When he was right. When the whistle blows, is there a more fun team to watch when they're all on and they're all hitting? No. But I hate
You don't mind the cockiness.
No, I
hate it.
I don't mind the arrogance. I would rather honest arrogance than false modesty. What I didn't like was the narrative that, Steph's the most humble superstar we've ever had. Miss me with that. The guy's celebrating makes before they go in, and good for him. He's the greatest shooter ever.
I think they mean off the court.
Okay, but that's again,
because he is like that off the court.
He seems to be a great husband and a wonderful father and a man of God, which I know you super appreciate. I have but on the court, that team is as arrogant as any team I've ever seen. But you know what? They're as good as any team I've ever seen. They've earned it. I don't mind the arrogance. It's the whining. It's the petulance. It's the air of entitlement. Listen, guys, think this is the kid of a billionaire who thinks the world's out to get him. Nah, bro. Everything has worked out perfectly for you guys. You haven't dealt with any significant injury this entire run. The salary cap ballooned at just the right time so you could add one MVP to the unanimous MVP. You've played in NBA Finals where the other team's two best players were out. You've gone through an entire postseason where every single other starting point guard was out. The one team in your conference that actually gave you trouble, you took their best player from them. I don't need them to show humility, but the whining, the constant whining as if they are being done wrong, let me ask you annoying to me.
If a LeBron James-led team acted that way, would you have a problem with it?
To be honest with you, I don't love the one part of LeBron's game that is aggravating to me is when he doesn't get back down on the court on defense because he's whining.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, they do it probably a little more than most.
But every team does it.
It's the
every
NBA.
Every team's got a guy that is, and LeBron, by the way, is the whiner on the Cavs. There's no question about it. But who's the whiner on the Warriors? Is it Durant who has the most ejections in the league? Is it Draymond who has the most technicals in the league?
It's Durant and Draymond.
Is it Iguodala on a per-minute basis might do more whining than any player I've ever seen? Steph with the throwing, that type, the whining when everything's gone right for you is
people are out to get them too.
Oh yeah, people
don't act. People aren't out to. The whole league is out to get them.
Yeah, but the refs aren't out to get them. But the refs aren't out to get him. It's the complaining to the officials and Durant's fake tough guy act.
I'm starting to wonder. I'm starting to wonder if Kevin Durant is like a Tommy Hearns type guy. Because I look at him and I'm like, KD can't be that tough.
When you put it that way. In the last 5 months, Isaiah Thomas has been on 3 different teams, and it seems he's always talking about the one he's not on. In an interview, Thomas said the Cavs, his now former team, were in, quote, panic mode when they dealt him to the Lakers. Thomas only played 15 games for Cleveland, scoring under 15 points per game. Nick, is Isaiah Thomas right about the Cavs? Were they in panic mode while he was there?
Absolutely. I mean, the GM said we were on a slow march towards death. That's how he described the team. Right? Because the Cavs were going to be in the position, if they didn't trade Isaiah Thomas, that the key player acquisition they got from the Kyrie Irving trade come the playoffs was going to be unplayable. We had discussed, and Jenna, you had been advocating, we'll put him to the bench, let him come off the bench, have Kevin Love be your second option. But they couldn't, Isaiah with his personality and demeanor, it's either have him be your starting point guard or just send him home. Yeah. He would have been a huge problem as a guy, as a role player. They should have panicked. They were playing horrific basketball after Isaiah Thomas came back, and they were playing excellent basketball before Isaiah Thomas came back.
That wasn't the only reason to panic. Number one, it was going so badly. We saw LeBron sulking that you were in major danger of losing him. Now, you may lose him anyway, but it was getting to the point where it was a no doubt that he was leaving. So that's number one. Then Isaiah Thomas is going to be a free agent. It was looking like, you know what? We're not going to re-sign this guy and bring him back. So you would have lost him for nothing. Yeah, so now you get something for him. Isaiah's absolutely right. I had no problem with what he said. And I guess once you get your powers back, you can say things like this.
Do you think he has his powers back?
He said he's got his powers back.
Of course he did.
He needs to show it. I mean, I'd like to see it.
Did the Cavs have an IT problem? Did they have a Ty Lue not getting players to work problem? Did they have we had the wrong players problem? Like, he calls it panic mode, but what was the problem now that we can all look back on it?
I mean, I think I know what the problem was. I think LeBron knew when they acquired Isaiah Thomas, this guy defensively is nearly unplayable against Golden State, or Houston for that matter, but you're focused on Golden State. The only way that he is playable as a plus, as a positive against those guys, is if he is 90%, 95% of who he was offensively last year. When he was 20% of who he was offensively last year, I think LeBron knew this team is drawing dead to win a championship. Yeah, I think LeBron still believed they could make the finals. I believed they could make the finals. I think you did as well. But to win a championship, they were drawing dead. And what that did was, as Chris mentioned, LeBron won Player of the Month in November, Player of the Month in December. He's about to win Player of the Month in February. And in January, he was bad. Like, I mean, he wasn't.
By his standards.
By his standards, really bad. It was the worst month of basketball he's played in over a decade. He was mentally defeated, I felt like. And so that's what, I mean, that was the biggest issue. LeBron can raise the tides of role players, but not when he doesn't believe his team has a fighting chance.
And look, in fairness to Isaiah, it wasn't just him.
No.
I mean, they had major problems. Most of their guys were one-sided. You know, the guys that could shoot the three couldn't defend. The guys that could defend couldn't shoot the three or do anything offensively. You had Isaiah Thomas, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, who at this stage of their career are very similar. They're all slashers. They're all used to being the number one option on their team. They can't catch and shoot for the most part. And so it just wasn't a good fit. And you had egos, guys thinking they deserve more minutes, including Isaiah. And so it wasn't just on him.
Jay Crowder was terrible.
Jay Crowder
and he was supposed to be a big part of that trade.
He was one of the major reasons I liked the trade at first.
Do either of you think they gave up on this guy too soon?
No. Look, I give Kobe Altman, the GM, credit for recognizing I made a mistake and not having too much pride to say, if I do it now, it'll look like I really screwed up when I made the trade. He went ahead and fixed it, and kudos to him.
And it made the locker room better. And that whole overhaul, it wasn't, D. Wade had rubbed Kevin Love the wrong way. Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas rubbed everyone the wrong way. They had to do it when they did it. So IT was right. Now, since I'm rooting for IT, I just hope he plays better down the stretch. I'd like him to get some big money this offseason. I think.
Changing gears just a little bit, shockwaves were sent throughout college basketball on Friday when a Yahoo report published documents of an FBI investigation. Arizona coach Sean Miller was caught on an FBI wiretap discussing paying incoming freshman DeAndre Ayton $100,000 to sign with the Wildcats. Miller did not coach Saturday's game against Oregon. Several other top programs, including Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State, and North Carolina, were also implicated as having reportedly given players impermissible benefits. Nick, what was your reaction to all of this?
Yeah, you create a false market. You create artificial caps on what otherwise would be a free marketplace, and this is what's going to happen. DeAndre Ayton for $100,000 is a bargain for Arizona. I mean, they'd get over on that one.
And can I just quickly, not to interrupt you,
please?
If Arizona paid him $100,000 or was willing to, what was everybody else offering? Because if Kentucky, Kansas, all these other schools that were recruiting him weren't offering anything, if I'm Sean Miller, I'm saying $1,000, $500. You know, so that just tells you, even though Sean Miller is guilty and he's going to get nailed, rightly so, he's not the only one.
So what is the NCAA going to do is the question. Like, there's nothing you can do. These guys have value. They have enormous value to their universities and to the sport as a whole. And we have decided arbitrarily and absurdly they can't exercise that value. They can't benefit from it aside from room, board, scholarship. And by the way, DeAndre Ayton is not the type of guy that I feel badly for, because DeAndre Ayton, while he's being deprived of some money his 1 year in college, he's going to make millions of dollars. It's the college football player who, what was Lamar Jackson worth for Louisville the last few years? And he's no surefire millionaire in the NFL. The guys whose highest earning potential of their lives likely came their 3 or 4 years in college that are deprived of that because of some asinine amateurism rule that we created these standards before there were television contracts. So my reaction is this is going to keep happening until you allow the players to exercise their free market value.
Is this just the start of it? I mean, do you think there's so much more to come, or do you think they're kind of nipping it in the bud?
If they really want to get to the bottom of it, then Andy Miller, and that's where the agent Andy Miller, NBA agent or ex-NBA agent, this is where all this is coming out of. They're looking at his records and finding all of this stuff. If they really want to get to the bottom of it, they'll look at every agent's records. And that's when you'll know they're getting to the bottom of it. But to Nick's point, look, amateurism at a time decades ago was legitimate. But now these guys are professional athletes, the football and basketball players, not the lacrosse players, not the swimmers and all that. They're not generating that type of money. Look at what the coaches are making. You're going to tell me Nick Saban's not a professional coach? You have a free market.
Yeah, what's the system for how you get paid?
But then you take all the smaller schools that aren't
they aren't
Kentucky,
getting players
Arizona,
anyway.
and they get out of it.
Western Kentucky's not getting.
Then what kind of college sports?
Western Kentucky doesn't have a shot to get the players Duke is recruiting.
So why even play if they're never going to even?
It's the same. It would be the same. Like,
why are they playing now? Why are they playing now?
Well, there's no real system in place, so you theoretically think they have a shot of getting any of the players.
But do they?
Correct. So they don't.
For the record, they would have a better chance under that system because they could have a rich booster that just says, you know what? I'll pay anything.
Exactly.
I'll pay anything. Like the idea that the only thing, when people say, okay, well, then what's the solution? Here's the solution. The same way I get paid, you get paid, you get paid. Someone wants to pay you. So I'm a top recruit. I'm looking at my schools. It's like, hey, here's the deal. These guys are offering me this to go to Duke. This guy's offering me this if I go to Kentucky. This guy's offering me this. I don't know why, but Ball State seems to be in the game.
It sounds crazy. And even your illustration, you're a professional. Okay, people can't correlate that with these guys being in college. But when you were in college,
I made money doing radio.
Okay, you did.
I did. And at no point did they come into my. Listen, I was on every academic scholarship Syracuse offered. I made money doing radio. At no point did they come into me and say, Nick, we found out that you've been taking money to do this professionally. You've lost your standing at the student radio station. You've lost your scholarships. No. I had a classmate, Scott Spinelli. He wrote a book while in school. At no point they're like, well, now you can't take.
That's the thing. Every other student in college who's not an athlete can work.
I get it, but I don't get, and I understand it, and it makes sense. But the system that you have in place, well, whoever just offers these kids the most money, that's the way. It doesn't feel organized. It just feels like it's going to be. It's just going to get out of control.
It's already out of control.
The top tier players are going to go to the same 5 schools, and that's.
But that happens. First of all, I don't think that would be the. First of all, Kentucky. What was the year they had Karl Anthony Towns, Devin
Book? How about Duke next year?
These guys.
Duke has the 1, 2, and 3 recruit.
Yeah.
So wait, in this new system, all of a sudden, Alabama's going to get all the good football players? There already is a haves and have-nots. And the other thing is this, and this is the third rail of this thing, but I'm going to read you directly from a study on this, because this is the unspoken part of this, which is what we are doing is, before I get to the study, what we are doing is taking wealth generated by football and basketball players and redistributing it to kids who play golf and water polo and the other non-rev sports.
Yep.
So what we are often doing is taking money generated by typically black, typically poor kids and giving it to everybody. When a lot of these typically black, typically poor kids are not going to go pro. And they could, while yes, they get room, board, and scholarship, their family doesn't. Their mom or dad is still living where they were living. And so what you have is 60% of black people support paying players. 26% of white people support paying players. What you have is the strongest indicator of opposition to paying players, more than age, education level, political affiliation, sports fandom, or even if you've played college sports yourself, is level of animus held towards African Americans. Like, that is an implicit part of this that is one of the reasons the system is not going to change. It works great for the administrators. It works great for the kids that don't play football and basketball. It works amazingly for the coaches. Yep. But the football and basketball players, it's like, it's good enough.
Look,
it's good enough.
I'm in favor of paying players. Coming up with the right system is challenging. However, if you just make it a free market system, all the players wouldn't get paid. But the ones that are the reason people are watching on television, they would get paid just like you got paid in college to work on a radio station. They could get paid to play football or basketball. And if a swimmer was maybe an Olympian or something like that, maybe they get paid too.
I bet some UConn
if they can generate
players
marketing.
Would get some money.
Yeah, I mean, so it could be open. It sounds crazy because of what we're used to,
Maybe
but when you really study it, it kind of makes sense.
You don't need, again, people are like, what's the system? The same system for how we all get paid. Someone offers you an amount of money. You decide if you want to do it or not. But I just want to remind the audience, this system was deemed fair before the NCAA and these universities generated $1 from television. The room board tuition system was put in place before any of these games were on TV. So if the system were fair when you had $0 television dollars, how on earth is it fair now when you have literally billions of television dollars?
The other reason in my head it feels cloudy is because you're mixing money with education. And for some reason, I feel like, I don't know. I haven't thought about it all, but athletes
we know
are going to
they're not student athletes
I
anymore.
understand
We
that,
know
but
it,
how
right?
many of
If
them?
you're going on,
less
if
than
I'm only
10% are ever going to make it. It has to be
but
about
that might be the only
education.
one. Those might be the only ones that get paid.
Well, and the idea that there is some purity to it that needs to be retained. I
agree with you.
In what job do you lose your purity because you get paid for it? Yeah. Like we're running out of arguments against it. And if the FBI wants to look into it, what they're going to find is when you have created a false cap on a market, people are going to go around.
As long as there's demand, there's always going to be the underbelly.
Look at it. What we found in Andy Miller's records is that they were paying players, Markelle Fultz, a couple others, that they didn't even get. So you think Markelle Fultz got paid by the Andy Miller and then went to an agent that didn't give him anything? I mean, it's all over the place.
Now that the NBA season is heating up, I wanted to talk about another podcast we do at Fox Sports, and that's Chris Broussard's In the Zone. Each week, Chris breaks down what's trending in the NBA and the biggest names in the league. Previous guests include Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaq, John Wall, and myself. So if you love the NBA, make sure to subscribe to In the Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
Moving on to the NFL, Blake Bortles signed a 3-year, $54 million contract extension with the Jaguars. The deal gives him $26.5 million guaranteed, could be worth up to $66 million with incentives. Side note, I'd like some incentives.
Got to reach him, though, Jenna.
Chris.
You know,
Hold on, let me just take it in for a second. Because I would reach every incentive that was thrown my way, except survive the flu. What do you think? Good decision?
At first glance,
Bortles?
you think it's crazy, but I think it was a great decision because look, you average that out, it's $18 million a year without the incentives. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, you had to pay him $19 million anyway because of his injury. Now you only guaranteed him $26.5 million. So basically, you're giving him a 1-year tryout. You're saying, look, he helped us to the AFC Championship game last year. Let's see what he does this year. If he falls off and is terrible or doesn't even improve, we can cut him, and it's $7 million. You can still draft a young quarterback to groom for the next year or two.
Here's the thing, though. If they cut him, it's $7 million the following year and then $9 million the year after. There's a little borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
That bad.
It's not that bad unless Blake Bortles goes back to being the Blake Bortles he's been his entire career, except for 3 weeks in December. what they did was they lowered his cap figure from $19 million to $10 million for this year. So now you can maybe add another player or retain some more of your own. I get that. But I happen to believe Blake Bortles is terrible at playing quarterback in the NFL. If you're terrible, then $9 million, $10 million, $12 million, it doesn't matter. I think the Jaguars will regret this move because it made it harder for them to get rid of him after this upcoming season. But if he plays well, they're going to be thrilled
it's a
that they have him
one-year
locked
tryout.
up.
That's what I look at it.
He
as.
also wanted this. Rumor has it he went to his agent and said, let's just get this done. I want to start focusing on those 3 weeks. So hopefully I can get those 3 weeks in December
AFC title
back.
game. Come on. You can't be
finally, a
terrible.
blockbuster trade in Kansas City. Chiefs dealt all-pro cornerback Marcus Peters to the Rams, a move that has confused and frustrated my dear partner, Nick Wright. The Rams will reportedly be sending draft picks back to KC. Nick, your thoughts on your hometown team and yet another interesting head-scratching move?
Well, I mean, listen, when you can trade one of the best corners in football is on his rookie contract who you drafted, you just got to do that. When secondary was your problem last year and you can get rid of your only plus player.
Why'd they do it?
Because the fans didn't like him because he knelt for the anthem.
But do you think that was just it? I mean, shouting matches with coaches.
Listen, the fans, I'm from Kansas City. I can say this. I love my hometown, but we tend to not always embrace the, let's call it brash black athlete. We got a player on the team in Travis Kelce who gets more flags for taunting or unnecessary roughness than Marcus Peters does, who is just as big of a problem on the field and not as good of a player on the field, and the fans love him. Now, Marcus Peters has butted head with coaches. There was an incident on a team bus. There's no question about that.
Throwing the official flag
into the stands.
Yeah,
I get it. But guess what, coaches? You signed up to be NFL coaches. You got to deal with him. If you can get a player that has 24 forced turnovers in 3 seasons, a guy you drafted who is on an incredibly cheap contract this year and will be on a cheap contract for his 5th-year option, and he's one of the best in the world at what he does. You didn't sign up to coach your local CYO. It's the NFL. There's going to be some borderline personalities. You don't trade them away for the 87th pick of the draft, which is the best they're going to get for this.
Look, for the most part, I like what you're saying. I tend to agree with your sentiment. But the fact that this guy is great, and that like you said, it's their problem. The secondary is bad, and they still were willing to trade him. The incidents we know about are probably just the tip of the iceberg. He must be a real problem. I don't know that for a fact. But for them to trade him, Andy Reid is viewed as a player's coach.
Yep.
He has suspended 2 players in his entire 19-year career. Marcus Peters and Terrell Owens. Now, we know what T.O. was. As great as he was, deserving Hall of Famer, I think first ballot even, but he was a problem in locker rooms. All I can fathom from this is that Marcus Peters was a problem in the locker room.
Listen, I can tell you it was a problem for the coaches. His teammates like him. I know for a fact. But go ahead, Jenna.
I don't buy into
hemming and hawing.
They have to just deal with it. He's a problem. They're not coaching Little League or Pop Warner. Because you're also a professional. It goes both ways. Be a professional. You think you're going to be happier somewhere else? You had a great situation there. This isn't going to come as a total surprise to him. This is the first I'm hearing of this. I'm a problem. Why can't you live up to the standards of being a professional adult?
Okay, but let's just say he can't.
That is not an excuse.
He can.
He
can.
He can?
Okay, I'll go this way. He's chosen not to. Are the Chiefs better off trading him? That's the only thing that matters. This is not a congeniality contest. It's professional football. Guess what with professional football?
Yeah, professional is the word you're using. You're using the word professional. So be a professional.
So why do the Rams want him?
Why does everyone? Because someone's problem could be someone else's blessing or whatever. It's the way it always is.
Because he's a great player.
Listen.
Because you're talking, you're having a separate...
But Nick, know that they thought exactly what you did. Are we better off without him?
And
they're not an ignorant coaching staff.
They're wrong. They're flatly
They
wrong.
know him. Look, that'll play out. We'll see. But look, the guy must have been a major problem in the locker room. And if you let one guy get away with that, guess what? Somebody else gonna start.
Well, first of all, they let Travis Kelce get away with it. Travis Kelce said, "I'm a changed man. I'm a changed man," and then he pantomimed a sexual act towards an official. Got back-to-back taunting penalties in weeks 1 and week 2 after saying he was a changed man. So the idea that Marcus Peters is the only borderline personality, I reject. And Jenna, you're right. In a perfect world, everyone acts professional. Everyone loves the coaches. Everyone hugs at the end of the day. But it's the NFL. You're gonna have some tough guys, and it is your job. The coaches aren't volunteers. They make millions of dollars a year. Learn to deal with it. Jenna, I'm not justifying
Say it to Bill Belichick. Hey, learn to deal with that guy on your team. I'm sorry, learn to deal with it.
What does Bill Belichick have to do with this?
Because it's the same thing. You can't ask a certain guy to be a professional. It's the national.
She's right. Be a pro.
Professional.
Okay.
Or
if
you're going to get traded.
First, you said he can't adhere to the rules. Secondly, you said, what if he chooses not to? That's even worse. If you choose not to, then you really got a problem.
My point is, I don't care why he acts the way he does, as long as on Sundays he's awesome.
How could you say that?
Because, Jenna, I am not...
That's your team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I do not root for them because I want him to babysit my son. I root for them because I want them to win football games.
Your secondary was atrocious with him.
And how's it going to be without him?
We'll see.
And the Chiefs' chances of winning football games just went down because they made this move. And the idea that you're phrasing it as if this is his punishment for how he's acted. These are not little kids. You don't trade a guy because you know what, he needs to learn a lesson. The only math that needs to be done is our team better with this? And you're not better trading a star player for a 3rd or 4th round pick. Flatly, you're not.
All right, we'll see, like you said, how this does play out. All right, let's stay in the NFL. Moving on to the Cowboys and Dez Bryant. Oh, Dez Bryant, the gift that keeps on giving. It was a tough season for Dez. He had a career low in touchdowns. His team missed the playoffs, and the front office implied he might need to take a pay cut. But other than that, everything was amazing for Dez Bryant. If you think Dez was okay with the idea of a pay cut, you don't know Dez. Take a listen.
I just think it's crazy, you know. I'm going to be straight up honest. I think everything I got, I deserved it. Everything I got. And I can get into way more details with that, but I'll leave that up to, when it's time for me to sit down and talk with the Joneses or whatever, whenever that is. I'm still working. I'm still grinding. I feel like I'm grinding more than I ever. It's because of me, not because of nobody else. It's something that I want to do, something that I feel like I have to do. I let a lot of things get in the way that shouldn't have never got in the way. I really make my mark. I don't care about what nobody's talking about. I can care less. Everybody ain't with Dez Bryant. They can kiss my ass.
I'm going to go ahead and hope that he was on a treadmill.
I was going to say, at times, he definitely sounded like
I don't know what was happening. He
breath.
was super out of breath. All right, so there's a number of different ways to go here on this one, Chris. We'll start with just what do you think the Cowboys should do?
All right, look. Did Dez Bryant have a poor year? Yes. Does he look like he's not what he used to be? Yes. I think he was in the top 5 in drop passes. He had a bad year.
He's had a decline over the last couple of years. He's had a decline.
You're right.
Not just one outline year.
You're absolutely right. But that said, I don't have a clear-cut number 1 that's going to replace him. 2, he's incredibly temperamental. And if you go to him with the idea of a pay cut, even if he accepts it, he may be such a problem. We just talked about it with Marcus Peters. He may become such a problem for you that it's a negative for your team. 3, Dez Bryant, for all his issues in the past, one of them that has never been a problem is hard work. He's always been regarded as a guy that works hard. You heard him in that interview. I really think his pride is bruised because everybody is ripping him, and rightly so. He's dropped too many passes. He couldn't get open enough. He only got caught basically half of his targets this year, which is terrible.
52% completion percentage to Dez for Dak, 70% to everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, that right there tells you what you need to know. So I think he is going to work his tail off this offseason to try to come back with a bounce-back year. He's only 29 years old. He's going to try to have a bounce-back year. So what I would do if I'm the Cowboys, I go to him and I talk to him. Maybe it has to be Jerry because I think he trusts Jerry. I think he likes him better than Steven. Go to Jerry. Jerry talks to him. Look, we know you didn't have a great year. but we believe in you. We need you. You're our best receiver. We're not, forget all that you're hearing about, we want you to take a pay cut. We believe in you. Go out and have a great year. And if he doesn't, if it's the same old Dez as last year, then you can do it next year. You can do contract things to spread out his money.
If they were to cut him after this year, it would only cost him $4 million against the cap. After this year, it becomes very easy.
What would you do?
So here's the thing. We bang on Dez a lot on this show, and he has earned that. He has earned the criticism.
Right.
He was bad last year. Dak was worse targeting him than anybody else. He has not lived up the last few years to the contract that he did earn by those extraordinary years, 3, 4, 5 of his career. But years 6, 7, 8, as you talked about, it's been a clear downward trajectory. But if right now, let's say the Cowboys today cut Dez Bryant, you know who the best free agent wide receiver in the NFL would be league-wide? Dez Bryant. So we talk about as if the Cowboys have some great option. Like by cutting him, you'd save $8.5 million. But who are you going to go get? Like Jarvis Landry, who is, he catches a ton of balls, but it's 7 yards a catch every time. Jarvis Landry's been franchised, so they'd have to trade something for him and give him a huge deal. Sammy Watkins is out there, but we don't know what Los Angeles is going to try to do with Sammy. After that, it's Terrell Pryor, who had a terrible season. Mike Wallace, who is on the wrong side of 30. I don't see a better option for the Cowboys, who need a dynamic wide receiver.
Okay, so Broussard thinks that because of all the criticism, maybe it's enough to light a fire under him and get him to actually put the work in. You've seen, and we've talked about it, and I've heard you say you've talked about the specific numbers of how steady the decline has been. Do you think Dez has it in him to just sort of turn it on and have numbers again like Dez Bryant?
You don't think he can get – I don't know if he can get back to what he was.
I think he can be better than he was last year. I don't think he can be a 1,400-yard, 12-touchdown guy again, and I don't think it's a lack of work. I think for Dez, as you mentioned, I think he does work hard. I think Dez has not, and this is, just something I've learned from talking to CeCe, that Dez has not developed the mental side of the game enough. And now that he is not as dominant of a physical force as he was earlier in his career, the game's caught up to him somewhat. I don't think all of a sudden Dez is going to become a smarter player, but I still think even this version of Dez Bryant, you want to go pay money for Kamar Aiken? How about Taylor Gabriel? Does that do something for you? If the Cowboys cut him or, ask him to take a pay cut, he says no, and then they cut him, they have a huge hole at that receiver this is just not the free agent class to need a wide receiver. Now, you want to draft a guy? Maybe you draft a guy anyway, but asking a rookie wide receiver to step in and make a big impact, that's hard as well.
I'm with you. That's why I think you have to keep him. And look, I do think Dez has been a bit humble. Now, all this bluster we just heard on the radio, that's just trying to make yourself feel better. And, that's just selling wolf tickets. He knows he had a bad year. He knows the criticism is legit. And I think part of that work ethic has to be getting in the film room, getting with Dak and becoming stronger at the game mentally, running better pass patterns and things like that. And the schemes. A lot of the receivers there are saying it wasn't just Dak not getting us the ball. It was the schemes that we ran that didn't get us as open as we should be. So I think they need to look at that as well.
I'm Jenna Wolf, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long.